Namaskar, I'm Devdeep Purkayastha from the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. Welcome to this career development workshop. This is the number 3 in its series, Grow Your Communication. The first was about growing yourself. The second was about growing your team. Both are available on the NPTEL Plus platform. Before I get into the workshop, let's look at the screen to see what Tony Robbins, who is an American author, speaker, and influencer, has said. That the quality of your communication can often decide or define or influence the quality of your life. Think about it. If you do a good job of communicating to the world knows who you are. The world can connect with you much better, much easily. Your ideas may be better understood and accepted, if not debated, and you may gain a better perspective. You will connect better 360-degree in a business, in a personal life, in a social life, with your friends, with your family, with your boss, with your subordinates, in your clubs, in your organization, in your school, in your college. So in many ways, communication drives relationship. But communication is not just about verbal, the way you speak. As you will see, it is also about your non-verbal. So there's verbal, which is the words that you speak, what you say, and then there is non-verbal, which are the words that you don't speak, but your body shows a lot. The way you stand, the way you look, the way you sit, the way you shake hands, those are non-verbal. And verbal plus non-verbal can give you great presence in any situation. And then we get into written, because not always will you interact with people in a live situation. You may interact in a live situation with real people, maybe 100, 1,000. And if you're a big leader, maybe 100,000. And if you're a very big leader of a country, you may be giving a speech to a few 100,000. But whether you speak or connect physically to 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, definitely will write to a lot of people. So written communication is also very important. And the flip side of written or communication is not what you write in mainstream or via email, but also what you write in your social media. Because all of you are connected through social media, be it LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Meta, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. So written and social media. And then you get into situational communication, and I'll cover a couple of situations. When you're talking in public, so you are the CEO of a team doing a town hall with 1,000 employees, 100 employees, 10,000 employees. Or you are talking to a community and your college fest. So public speaking. And the flip side of it is when you're talking to a small group of people to convince them on your ideas or on your product or your service, in which case you're selling. So how do you become a persuasive influencer of your product, of your service, or your ideas, or your theory, or your ideologies, or your club? We'll try and cover all of this, but this is a workshop, which means that this is not about lectures. I can only give you a few tips, techniques, tools, assessment frameworks, etc. But you have to work on your communication. So the tips, tools, techniques, assessments, frameworks, etc. that I show you is something which you can use for the rest of your life, and you can build on it based on external inputs, YouTube videos or other classes which are more detailed, or training and so on. So see this as the start of your journey to be a great communicator, or if you're already a good communicator, how to build on your communication skills. Or if you're good at some of the situations and mediums, how can you become a 360-degree all-rounded communicator? So see this as a starting point. This is by no means a comprehensive plan to grow your communication. It just shows you the way, but you need to work on it. So with that, we will start on the first module, the basic module of verbal communication. How do you speak, and how do you speak well? So why is verbal skills, verbal communication important? Because at a lot of your time in your life, you will be talking to people. It could be in class, in college, it could be in the train, it could be in the bus, it could be in the shop, it could be in your company, with your team, with your boss, with your subordinate, it could be in your club, it could be at home, it could be in a community, it could be with the friends, it could be with the family. You're talking. All of us know how to talk. And all of us, in many times, just want to relax and don't want to be too careful about what we talk. Just put your head down, relax, chill, and there's no tension in how you talk. But there are situations where you need to talk well. It's not a situation where you're with your friends, hanging out. It doesn't matter how you talk, what you talk. You're just relaxing. But on the flip side, a lot of the times you have to be able to talk well. So these tips, techniques, tools, frameworks that I'm going to give is for those situations when talking well is important. Not for the situations when you're just relaxing at home with the children or with the father, mother, friends and family. So what's the benefit if you're able to talk well, communicate well and have strong verbal skills in situations where it's important? First, it gives you confidence. When you talk well and you know that you're talking well, you will be confident. And when others perceive you as confident, they will accept you better. And then you're in a loop where you're confident, others accept you better, others accept your ideas better, people accept your communication well, they respond well, and your self-esteem goes up. And therefore, it strengthens relationships, not where you have relationships by birth, father, mother, brother, sister, whatever. But in social and professional situation where the relationship is not by birth and not a given by marriage or friendship, it develops strong relations if you can communicate, especially verbally, well. Because people know that what you stand for. People know what your ideas are. Whether you say yes or whether you say no, people understand the logic of why you're saying what you're saying. And therefore, you de facto start becoming a bit of an influencer, a leader, because you're articulating your ideas well, more persuasively, more clearly, with maybe lots of data. And therefore, in those formal situations, you start becoming a leader, a formal leader, an appointed leader, or an informal leader, an influencer, simply because you're communicating better. It also helps to resolve conflicts because sometimes there are misunderstandings. You say one thing, but you have not said it clearly and it's misunderstood. You have said something, the correct thing, with the wrong choice of words. So trying to give feedback, but because of the words that you have chosen or the tone that you have used, people think that you are criticizing them and people then become defensive and people then don't accept your feedback. But your intent was to be positive and give feedback. Your intent was not to insult or criticize. But if you are not careful, your feedback designed to help may land up on the recipient as a criticism or a negative comment. And then it becomes a conflict situation. Also, you make more friends easily. You connect better. If you are at a party and you are talking well, then you can make more friends in a party. If you are in an industry forum, if you are in a company gathering, if you are in a college festival, if you are in a large club, so Rotary Club or Lions Club, at a gathering, because you can communicate well without stress, easily, friendly, and therefore you start building your network. So these are the benefits. And what happens if you have not developed your verbal skills in formal situations? You can be misunderstood because you are either not speaking well or not speaking clearly, and you are not communicating what's in your mind and others don't get it. This misunderstanding, you are trying to say something and you have not said it or said it the wrong way or with the wrong choice of words, and people have misunderstood you. Of course, you lose opportunities. Imagine a job interview, your performance appraisal in a company. When you are asked to pitch to investors, if you can't communicate well, you lose opportunities, professional opportunities. And then slowly, your credibility and relationships start suffering because people are just not clear what you're saying. And they don't buy into it. And therefore, your acceptance goes down. And these are all the risks if you don't have at least the basic level of verbal skills. But I encourage you not to be just basic levels of skills, which most of us have, all of us that are watching this video have, but to become an outstanding communicator, starting with being an outstanding, clear, persuasive verbal communications. So what are the essence of great verbal skills, verbal communication skills? Again, like in all the workshops, all the modules, I've tried to keep it simple and in a way that you can memorize. And I call it the 6 V's of great verbal communication. And you can see it on the screen. Your voice, your vocabulary, the words that you use, your volume, then your speed of speaking, the variety of how you speak, and finally, making sure that the others have understood what you have told them, which means you validate. So here are the 6 V's: your voice, your vocabulary or choice of words, your volume, your speed of speaking, your variety, which makes it interesting, and then validating, making sure that people have understood what you have said. Let's now deep dive into each of those 6 V's. The first V is voice. God has given all of us a voice. But voices vary. Some have high volume voices, some have low volume voices, some have high pitched, some have low pitched. Men have a certain pitch, women have a different kind of pitch. So it varies, which is God gifted. But if you want to be a good verbal communicators, I would encourage each of you to train your voice. There are many ways you can train your voice. There are YouTube videos, there are voice training classes. Whichever town you are in, chances are there will be someone who's training you on your voice. If you look at film actors or actresses, they all go through voice training classes, voice modulation, voice pitch. And to some extent, you can be aware of your voice after this workshop. But if you really want to train your voice, I would strongly encourage, watch a few more YouTube videos, and I'll give you some practice regimes, how you can practice your voice. So what do you need to achieve in your voice? Clearly, your tone, your pitch, volume decides your voice. And you have to be able to vary your voice depending on the situation. So if you're standing in front of your classroom with, let's say, 50 people, you talk loudly. But if you're just doing a one-on-one presentation to your mentor or your investor or your boss, you don't shout. You just talk in a normal voice, or you talk with a lot of passion and persuasion. So you have to be able to change your voice depending on the situation. Not everybody is blessed with a God-gifted talent such as Mr. Amitabh Bachchan and others. They have got great voices. But you can always change and train the pitch. You can always talk a bit more bass. So you can train your voice. Why it matters? Because when you speak with a more confident voice, a more trained voice, people listen to you better. You can watch movies. You can watch politicians giving a speech. Any of the great orators. It could be in India, it could be Mr. Bajpayee or Ms. Gandhi, Mrs. Gandhi, Mr. Modi, it could be Mr. Obama from US, whoever you like. You can watch your movie stars. You can look at army people when they're in a parade ground, an army sergeant who is doing a drill. Look at various situations where people, leaders, army leaders, national leaders, CEOs, CXOs are using their voice to get attention and influence people. So that's the first V, voice. Next V is vocabulary. The choice of your words. So if you're, for example, trying to give feedback to a person, it makes a big difference how you give feedback. For example, you could say when a subordinate is presenting something to you, or a student is presenting something to you, or a startup founder is presenting something to you as because you are an investor, you could choose the words in two different ways. For example, you could say, you messed it up. It's terrible. How could you come up with this, something like that? It's useless. You just wasted my time. That's one way of saying it. You're choosing certain words. But the other way of saying it, which may then make it more effective, is to say, okay, I heard you. It's quite a nice presentation, a nice pitch, a nice dissertation, but you can improve it. Someone like you can definitely make it much better. So if you look at the two ways, okay, of how you're giving feedback, the recipient will react differently. Similarly, if you look at the screen, when you're doing a job interview, the words that you choose, which can be domain specific. So if you're in a fintech or a finance company, financial services or bank, the words that you choose to express your ideas is better to be more related to banks or financial services or a fintech startup. Versus if you're in a agriculture company, seeds company, fertilizer company, or an agri-drone company. So if you're interviewing, discussing, the words that you choose, maybe for the same idea, can be very different depending on the domain. Similarly, in a debate, choose your words carefully, be it on a debate, a casual debate on WhatsApp. It can be a serious debate in a formal setting. It could be in a company where you are arguing respectfully but effectively with another department, another stakeholder. It's important to choose your words precisely, carefully. Why it matters, of course? Because then you get accepted well. You're more persuasive. People listen to you. So the choice of words, that's the second V. The third V is related to voice but slightly different. It's one aspect of the voice, which is the volume. Now, voice itself has got subparts to it. One is volume, which is what you are seeing on the screen. The second is something called velocity, the speed at which you speak. For example, when I lecture in class or in an industry forum or in a mentoring forum, I will normally speak maybe much faster than when I'm speaking whilst recording here. Why do I speak slowly here? Because I know that not everybody who's listening to, sometimes I have got 10,000 plus students in my online lectures. Not everybody may grasp my accent. Not everybody may grasp my English. Not everybody may be as good in English as others. And therefore, I consciously speak at maybe 30% slower speed than I would do in a classroom. So velocity is important. If you are doing hard sales, which means you're talking to a small store, you're selling consumer goods in a small town, in a small store, you probably have to speak faster in a very friendly tone, which is called the sales pitch. But at the same time, if you are in a scientific gathering and you're trying to express a very complex idea, very, very complex scientific idea, you cannot talk at the same velocity at what the salesperson is talking. The salesperson is giving a pitch, and he's given the pitch 100 times over, 1,000 times over, and he's got to give it another 100 times, another 1,000 times. So he has to speak at a certain velocity. But if you're in a scientific community, R&D discussion, a PhD class, you may have to talk slower so people can get those complex ideas versus a sales pitch where it's just a simple selling activity. And therefore, the pacing becomes very important. So as I said, volume and velocity. Variety. Variety is how you make your conversation interesting. You can have a great volume, you can have a great voice, you're choosing the right words, you're speaking at the right pace, not too fast, not too slow, but it's a bit of a boring way of how you're saying it. It's much better to say it in different, interesting ways. And this is where storytelling comes up in a big way. So it's one thing to give the theory of a startup and say, here are the 5 steps to a startup. You do customer discovery, you do solution design, you test it in the market, and so on. Versus giving the first 5 steps of a startup, you can also say it in a storytelling way. Did you know how Amazon started up? Guess how Flipkart started up. Think about the problems that Steve Jobs faced when he was starting to build up Apple. Did you know the journey of Mr. Ratan Tata? Let me tell you how Procter & Gamble started up. So it's becoming variety. So instead of the 5 steps to a startup, you're actually using humor or stories or case studies to communicate. So variety is very important. Storytelling, humor, anecdotes make it very, very interesting. Paint a picture of the future. If you're in a team meeting and you're discussing targets for the team or deliverables and goals for the team, you can say, okay, here are the 5 goals. And that's one way of telling. You can say it with the right volume, right pitch, right velocity, right words, but it's not variety, it's not interesting. A far more interesting may be to say, hey, we need to be the best team. Imagine if we became the best team. Imagine if you became the champion. Imagine if you got the winner's trophy and got a free trip to somewhere in the world. But to get there, we must do 5 things. So let's find out how we can deliver those 5 things and really become the best. So we've added, in this simple case, variety versus telling them the 5 objectives versus showing them a vision, discussing the plans. And then you can throw in stories and anecdotes. Those team is doing that. These people have done that. Nobody has done that. We can do it. We can be the best. So that adds variety. And the last V is validation. It's not enough just to talk. It should not be a one-way process. You just say everything that's in your mind and say, okay, I've communicated, let's move on. You have to validate in formal situations that the recipient has understood what you have tried to tell him. This may not be important if you are in a family gathering or an informal situation, just talking to your children, your brothers, your sisters, or just hanging out, passing the time of the day. But in a formal situation, you have to validate that the others have understood what you have tried to tell them. And therefore, it's okay to ask them directly, does that make sense? Have you got it? Have you understood? Will you do it? So that there is a closing of the loop of what you said versus what they understood, and then you're reconfirming their understanding. Like in all the workshops, it's very important that you take some time off, and I'll show you ways to practice, and you do a self-assessment of your day-to-day activity, in this case, your day-to-day communication. And to help you do that, I give you a self-assessment scorecard or a rubric, and on the left side you'll find all the 6 elements. There are 3 in this slide and there are 3 more in the next slide. And there are behavior pattern, day-to-day behavior pattern. If you do that, it becomes your strength. There are other behavior patterns which makes you're okay, you're not good, but you're not bad, and you can improve. And there are behavior patterns which are definitely improvement areas. So this will help you assess yourself. When you first start, a lot of your assessment, honest assessment, may be on the right side, which means they're all your improvement areas. But if you start working and have a personal development plan and you practice some of the tips I'll give you in a minute, you will slowly find that all of them becomes your strength. On a day-to-day basis, you're communicating from strength. And you become an outstanding communicator in this module an outstanding verbal communicator. This is the next slide with the next 3 V's. So once you have done the assessment, you need to practice. So how do you practice? You may be in a business situation, and there are very standard ways of practicing. You can always do mock presentations. So before the final presentation to a class, a professor, an investor, your boss, your team, in an industry forum, you can practice it on your own or with a small group of friends. But you have practice. You have done mock practice. You can always practice negotiation. Ideally, this practices are best done with a buddy. Identify a buddy or a friend who is going through the same process, gone through the same workshop, and then you practice with each other, negotiate with each other. Learn to listen. It's very important when you are speaking to be able to listen. Otherwise, you are speaking, but there's no warranty that the other person has understood what you are saying or even agreeing to what you are saying. So you've spoken, but you're not effective. For you to be able to understand what the other person is accepting, agreeing, you have to be an active listener to what he or she is saying. Elevator speech, which is basically a very small 15-second clip, a practice rehearsal of what your idea is or who you are or what you're all about. A 15-second, and the reason it's called an elevator pitch is because in a hypothetical situation, if you're in a lift or an elevator with a senior person, your professor, your boss, your investor, your stakeholder, your chairman, your club president, he or she asks, hey, how are you? How's things? In 15 seconds, you can actually give an update about yourself or your business or your idea. Then you get more time. If it's a tall building and you're in the lift for 30 seconds, you can have a 30-second pitch. So you can have a 15-second pitch, 30-second pitch, but that's about it. That's why it's an elevator speech. Short, sharp expression of what you want to say. Storytelling, business storytelling, very important. Don't just talk when you're talking about a product or a service in a business situation, about just the features and the benefits. Paint a picture of what you can do. For example, if this is a phone, don't talk about how long it is, how tall it is, how heavy it is, how nice the screen is. Nothing wrong with it. You're being factually correct. Your volume of your voice may be correct. Velocity may be correct. But you're not telling the story. You're just saying, here are the features. So high, so short, so tall, so heavy, screen is like this, the chips is like this. But instead of that, if you use a story and say, imagine you've gone on a hike and there's lovely scenario all around, and you want to take the pictures or a video so you can remember it 10 years later. Here is something with a great camera which will help you preserve your memories for next 10, 20 years. So instead of saying, oh, this is a camera with a great phone and it's 5 megapixels, it's got a zoom lens, and it can take high density, high resolution pictures, which is correct, you have spun a story and made it more interesting. So storytelling. And feedback conversation is all about saying something, asking for validation to continue the conversation. So you are not debating or arguing, but you're building on each other's ideas. And then you emerge stronger because both of you have accepted each other's idea and the idea itself may have become richer. And this works very well in team meetings and so on. Moving on to personal situation. When you're by yourself, there are many ways you should practice your communication. First is talk to yourself. Just talk. 1 minute a day, 5 minutes a day, 30 minutes, when you're on your own, you're in the garden, you're on the roof, you're alone in your bedroom. Just talk. Practice talking. Mirror speaking. Even better is when you're in a bathroom or in a bedroom or in a hotel room or in a club room, speak and watch yourself speak. And see what you look like when you're speaking. Definitely think and reflect every day based on the assessment scorecard that I have shared in an earlier part of the video. Other thing is, especially to improve your voice, your volume, your velocity, read out loud. Take any book. Even if you're not speaking or giving a speech to yourself, read out loud. You read a lot of books, whichever is your favorite book, a textbook, a fiction book, your favorite writer's book. Read it out loud by yourself. Practice reading out loud every 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day. And try to focus when you're reading on your volume, your velocity, your voice. Family discussions is a great time to practice. Especially storytelling. Trust me, even in informal situation where communication is not that important, you can practice your communication, because you know what? When you're sitting with your nephew or your niece or your son or your daughter, whoever, you can learn how to tell stories. Instead of saying, oh, I went to the movie yesterday, and then stopping, you say, oh, that was a great movie, and you know what? This movie had this thing, and it was such an interesting, and that. Practice telling stories in personal situation, so that when you get into a business situation, storytelling comes naturally to you. And record yourself. Everybody nowadays has a phone, at least an audio phone, feature phone. And most of you probably have smartphones. Record yourself, delete it, record, delete, record, delete. And that will give you great practice. Just the way a cricketer is always practicing his batting. This stroke, that stroke, lofting, cutting. Or a football player is always taking a corner kick or penalty kick or just dribbling. So just like you're practicing your cricket, your football, your tennis, just like you're practicing your physics or chemistry or mathematics, question papers, if you're readying for entrance exams, you're doing thousands and thousands of entrance test papers and questions. Practice your verbal communication. Just like that. Record, delete, watch yourself, assess yourself. So I would suggest that you take 30 minutes out immediately after the workshop, assess yourself, reflect, and then depending on your reflection, highlight 1 or 2 most important areas that you want to work on. Once you fix that, you can go to the 3rd and the 4th area. Once you fix that, go to the 6th or 7th area. And keep doing it, keep practicing, and come back to the assessment after every 30 days or 3 months or 6 months or 1 year. And do some of the things that I've highlighted. Watch those YouTube videos. Go for a voice training class. Watch a movie and see how your favorite actor or actress speaks. And hopefully you'll become an outstanding speaker in various situations. So with that, thank you, good luck, namaskar.